Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Barry Norman on behalf of Investing.com, and welcome to our last class of our five-part series on cryptocurrencies. And tonight we're going to be talking about government regulations and laws that will and do affect the value and the trading in cryptocurrencies. Now, for anybody who wants to see the first four classes, you can just go to Investing.com, where you register for this webinar. Go up to the button that says webinars, and you'll see where it says pre-recorded webinars, and you can watch classes 1 through 4, and this is class number 5. Now, I will give you a little, or I'm going to give myself a little bit of an out here. As you know, government regulation affecting digital currency is ever evolving. I tried to get all the most up-to-the-date, up-to-the-minute information when I was building this webinar. But I built the webinar, a couple days ago, and things did actually change. CySIC, which is one of the biggest European regulators, has come out with very strict terms on leverage for trading cryptocurrencies, but they are allowing cryptocurrencies to be traded by regulated providers, but they are limiting the amount of leverage offered on these CFDs. So this is the first thing that any major regulator has approved specifically for cryptocurrency, because basically if you're regulated and you put them as part of your CFD or Forex, they were all covered. Now, CySIC has actually now specifically added in verbiage allowing cryptocurrency. So for now, the regulatory environment remains a free-for-all. China's government, concerned about the use of Bitcoin in capital flight and tax evasion, has recently banned Bitcoin exchanges. Japan, on the other hand, has enshrined Bitcoin as a legal tender in an apparent bid to become the global center of fintech. The legality on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies depends on where you are and what you wish to do with it. Governments the world over are trying to get a grips with the risk and the rewards, playing the game between consumer protection, anti-criminal activity, and encouraging innovation. The risks for governments can vary. Most emerging markets are either heavily anti or pro the use of digital currencies such as Bitcoin, but in general, Western economies are using soft touch principles based on regulation to encourage innovation. Regulation is a patchwork of different opinions the world over, but we see that lots of governments are thinking. Now, what we do agree on, and what most governments around the world want to stop, is money laundering and criminal activity. So they have done this without actually forcing regulation or approval of cryptocurrencies. What they've forced is identification verification with exchanges and businesses accepting cryptocurrency that will be using them into fiat currency. In other words, if you have an exchange account and you have Bitcoin already and you want to switch Bitcoin to Ethereum, that can be done completely anonymously. If you have Bitcoin in your wallet and move it to an exchange and want to do something with it, that can be done. But to get it from cryptocurrency into a fiat currency, or use your credit card, debit cards, wire transfer, PayPal to buy a cryptocurrency, they must use the standard KYC policies and procedures of verifying the identity. So in other words, once you're in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, you can be completely anonymous, but whenever you want to use the legal tender currency system, you have to have identities. So the United States is taking tentative steps to follow Japan in regulating fintech. Though the endgame is far from clear, importantly, Bitcoin does not need to win every battle to justify sky-high price. Japan, the world's largest economy, has an extraordinary high currency-to-income ratio. So Bitcoin's success there is a major triumph. But it is folly to think that Bitcoin will ever be allowed to supplement central bank issued money, government money. It is one thing for governments to allow small anonymous transactions with virtual currency. Indeed, this would be desirable, but it's an entirely different matter for governments to allow large-scale anonymous payments, which would make it extremely difficult, and this is the big word, collect taxes. Of course, governments that issue large denomination bills also risk aiding tax evasion and crime. But cash at least has bulk, unlike virtual currency. So the main reason you see governments getting involved in this regulation is because they would like to collect tax on every transaction. So if I was doing work for you and you were in the United States and I was in London and you were paying me by Bitcoin anonymously, nobody could force me to pay what? Employment taxes, income taxes, or anything else. Now, if I were to take that money out of the Bitcoin, you send me the Bitcoin, I've got it in my Bitcoin wallet, and then I want to transfer it back into my debit card, my credit card, or into my bank account, I would have to use my identity. Okay. So I've moved some money back into my bank account through identity. It's still, there's no tax scenario on it. So it'll be interesting to see how the Japanese experiment evolves. The government has indicated that we'll force Bitcoin exchanges to be on the lookout for criminal activity and to collect information on deposit holders. Still, one can be sure that global tax evaders will seek ways to acquire Bitcoin anonymously abroad and then launder their money through Japanese accounts. Carrying paper currency in and out of a country is a major cost for tax evaders and criminals. By embracing virtual currency, Japan risks becoming a Switzerland-like tax haven with the bank secrecies baked into the technology. So what would the price of Bitcoin drop to zero if governments could perfectly observe transactions? Well, perhaps not. Even though Bitcoin transactions require an exorbitant amount of electricity, with some improvements, Bitcoin might still beat the 2% fee big banks charge on credit and debit charges. Well, the fact that we can move Bitcoin anonymously and basically cost-free, it was supposed to be cost-free, now most wallets and exchanges are charging a transaction fee, which is a tiny, tiny bit of money. But they're going to see as time goes by that their networking costs, their advertising costs, their legal costs, and their government costs are going to go up. And the fact is, you still pay exorbitant fees to exchanges to get your fiat currency into a crypto coin. So once I have Bitcoin, to move it from you to me doesn't cost me any money. To convert it from Bitcoin to Ethereum doesn't cost me any money. But most of us live in the real world, and most of our money is in our local currency. And the fees to get it converted into a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin back into something sometimes can be very, very high. Now, the fact is, I bought my first 3 Bitcoins having nothing to do with pricing, just as an experiment to start doing webinars several years ago. And I bought them for a couple $100, and now they're over $5,000. I don't care what the fees are to convert it back into US dollars because you made a lot of money. If cryptocurrencies are currently the Wild West, then the coming regulations are like barbed wire. Depending on your perspective and which side of the fence you are on, that might be a good thing or a bad thing. Prior to the invention of barbed wire in the later parts of the 1800s, settling the West was a struggle between farmers and ranchers. Farmers would build fences only to have them trampled down by free-roaming livestock. The federal government issued a study saying the West couldn't be won without better fencing. Then in 1871, a man from Ohio figured out a cheap and easy way to strengthen simple fencing wire by twisting it together and integrating a barb, which was enough to deter and stop livestock from prowling through it. By the late 1800s, farmers encouraged to move west by the federal government through land grants were able to define their parcels and keep livestock out of the crops, which changed everything and had a far-reaching economic, ecological, and cultural impact. Well, that's the same thing we're seeing with cryptocurrency. As an interesting side note, as the new wire fencing was unrolled across the West, it also served as a means to transmit early telegraph signals. The wire conducted just enough electricity to carry a signal before proper phone infrastructure was built, which allowed rural communities to connect. Telephones were adopted as quickly in small towns as they were in big cities. So one of the side notes here is cryptocurrencies and blockchain. It's important to keep this in mind that innovation has side effects, and in some instances, they are good, like connecting remote communities through the early adoption of telephones. But as a counterpoint, a landscape checkered with barbed wire also hastened the dissemination of the West's vast American bison and the indigenous cultures that subsisted on them. So here, let's go to a hard jump here. So if we think of the free roaming cryptocurrency growth, that's one side of the fence, but the other side of it is that they're advocates for smoothing out the crazy turbulence of crypto markets and to bring order in some sense to neat geometry and governance of the cryptocurrency space. It's an oversimplification, but in some respects, the cryptocurrency regulatory debate is about applying order to what could be described as lawless, endless range of possibilities. And we see this in ICOs. I mean, this is just craziness out there. This is happening right now. At the beginning of the month, the Chinese government banned cryptocurrency exchanges from trading initial coin offerings before they closed down the exchanges. ICOs are the Wild West, and they are raising so much money with no thought, no reasoning. I just saw the other day that a broker with a very bad reputation is launching his ICO, and people are buying these new coins from this broker. Now, ICOs have boomed in 2017, leading to fears of crazy speculation and ballooning bubbles. 1 week earlier, in the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission also signaled it was investigating ICOs. The Chinese government followed the ICO crackdown by announcing an outright ban on all cryptocurrency exchanges. The news inspired to massive market tumbles across cryptocurrency, striking tens of billions of dollars off the books, but it immediately climbed back, recovered, and exceeded its high, is now trading at an all-time high. Issuing a ban is an absolute form of regulation. Rather than letting people settle a new digital frontier behind government-defined fences, the Chinese government has effectively said they would rather leave the new space barren and unutilized. The other side of the cryptocurrency regulation spectrum is, except of course that there's not really how cryptocurrency works. It would be hard and maybe impossible to really regulate decentralized cryptocurrency platforms without destroying part of the internet. And the fact is, almost everybody in the world these days wants the use of the blockchain technology that is associated with cryptocurrency. So even if governments or maybe someday corporations or warlords or the powers that be decide not to recognize cryptocurrencies, that would have to be completely dismantled from what now is a growing global network. I mean, we have billions and billions of dollars in cryptocurrency now. So to deregulate it or to close it down would force huge amounts of losses on lots of people. Governments just don't do that. One of the core values of decentralized permissionless cryptocurrencies is that they are controlled by the consensus of the people using them. By downloading and running the blockchain, anyone can be part of the network. And the fact is, if 10 governments outlawed them, they still couldn't stop the transmission through blockchain of the cryptocurrency movements. They could stop the exchanges. The exchanges are the way you turn fiat currency into cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency back into useful domestic currency. But as you know, with the internet, everybody finds ways to get around everything. So in theory, governments or powerful organizations like banks are no longer the gatekeepers of currency movement. It used to be the central banks around the world controlled all the currency movements. That's no longer the case. So it would be hard to stop all of this. So as we can see on the map over here of who is allowing or what the attitudes are towards cryptocurrency, we see most of the green is completely permissive. We have some out of Russia being continuous, and China. Now, Russia has gotten, Putin's gone back and forth on this. He now looks like he's going to ban most cryptocurrencies because the government is going to issue their own cryptocurrency, but that goes up in the air day by day. We have some environments that are completely hostile, which is very little in South America, and then we have a lot that are just unknown. There's been no comments on them whatsoever. On the opposite side of the spectrum of completely banning cryptocurrency exchanges, since the idea of true permissionless cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin cannot really be regulated. As a result, there is renewed interest from regulators in Singapore, the United States, Japan, and China to have oversight in the cryptocurrency space and curb the potential of widespread money laundering and fraud. But some worry that too many rules could potentially deter firms from innovation or innovating with blockchain. Now, in fact, China's banned them, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay banned forever. The Chinese government will most likely come out with a very specific sets of rules, because it does come down to, you know, we say money laundering, think money laundering, that's like criminals or very rich people hiding their money out in Switzerland. But it's no different. Money laundering is you getting, you know, $500 from selling something or doing some work for a guy in Russia, and he pays you in cryptocurrency, and then you convert it back to your credit card and you use it. You've just laundered money, even though it's just a small amount. Okay, but you've laundered money. It's not traceable and it's virtually not taxable. But if you think a million people doing $500 at a time, or you know, your little old grandmother doesn't understand that she's actually laundering money. You know, her grandson, who's not so ethical, says, "Hey, Grandma, I want to move some Bitcoins over to you, and then, you know what, I'm going to have you transfer them onto your credit card or wire them into your bank account." And she says, "Fine, oh, some Bitcoin, okay, it's only $1,000. Before you know, little old granny, you know, when you say when you tell her you can use counterfeit money, or you're telling her you're doing that drug money, then she's get worried. But all of this is still money laundering. Now, Japanese media reported that the country is set to introduce regulatory oversight on cryptocurrency exchanges in October this month. The challenge that authorities need to figure out includes settling on accounting rules for virtual currencies and deciding how to handle ICOs. According to a Reuters report, Sergei, whatever his name is, first deputy governor of Central Bank of Russia, has stated today that Russia will block access to websites belonging to exchanges and trading platforms offering cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. The central bank official was speaking at a financial market conference today when he pointed to the dubious nature of Bitcoin as an investment instrument for retail investors. The Australian government is attempting to crack down on issues such as money laundering and terrorism financing through the introduction of a new bill which includes the regulation of cryptocurrency exchanges. Last month, the coalition government began implementation of the initial stage of reform of the Anti-Money Laundering and Counterterrorism Financing Act, giving more power to the Australian transactions and reporting analysts. But again, each one of these is directly devoted to an exchange, not a wallet, not a trading platform, just the exchange, because the exchange is where the physical exchange happens. So now we come to the last thing, which is really upsetting the governments around the world. And you know how it's like kids keep getting in trouble until they cause something enough that, you know, they get in a lot of trouble. And what's happened is these ICOs are upsetting everybody around. Anybody with any sense, any smart, can see that they're not all of them, but half of them are scams. Okay, they're also, even the ones that are new companies raising millions and millions of dollars, not for stockholders, for cryptocurrency issuers, but they're anonymous. And they're raising this company is raising millions of dollars without issuing shares because these people investing in the ICOs own no part of the company. So in other words, they're somehow or another raising $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million in unknown money and issuing unissued tokens that haven't, the cryptocurrency hasn't been released yet. The way ICOs work is fairly straightforward. Companies create and issue digital tokens that can be used to pay for goods and services on their platform or stashed away as an investment. They put out white papers describing the platform, the software, the product they're trying to build. And then people buy those tokens using widely accepted currencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum, or fiat currencies like the US dollar. Startups have raised more than $1 billion this year in coin sales in recent months. In China, ICOs have raised at least 2.62 billion yuan, about $400 million. All of that is done with minimal regulatory oversight. Moreover, digital currencies are pseudonymous, decentralized, encrypted, making it harder to track each of the transactions made and the individuals behind it. Theoretically, anyone with an internet connection and a digital wallet can be part of a coin sale. Well, that's one thing, us being part of it. But most of these people are getting suckered in to buying nothing. That many worry leaves plenty of room for people to launder money, finance terrorism activities, engage in other fraudulent behavior, especially in countries where corruption is rampant. In turn, some groups behind digital tokens have taken pains to emphasize that their cryptocurrency are not securities, but rather act more like reward program points, like airline miles. As in the case of Singapore, securities are oftentimes more stringently regulated than other kinds of assets. So while regulation can sometimes be expensive for companies, it also brings benefits. Currently, token sales are restricted mostly to retail investors, like you and I, who are not bogged down by the compliance rules faced by institutional investors. A regulated ICO market with proper checks in place could draw in professional investors. Now, it is an ever-evolving sphere out there. It's changing day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. None of them, unless it's widespread, will have really an effect, outside of a temporary effect, on the value of the cryptocurrencies. Most people believe that a ban or strict regulation of ICOs is forthcoming and is important, because it's too many people getting suckered in to a lot of things that they shouldn't be involved in. I mean, it's just like IPOs. IPOs are highly placed, and only people with knowledge get involved in it. Now, the fact is, if you've got $1,000 that your granny gave you as a present, and you have a choice of putting it in your bank account for college or buying some new coin that's being issued, what we're all doing is people are hoping that if they buy this new coin, or they buy $200 of each one of these new coins in an ICO, that maybe 10 years from now they'll be like Bitcoin. And what's 200 bucks if it's going to go up to $10,000? But the fact is, too many people are getting suckered in. Now, if you're ready to start trading Bitcoin and you want a great place to buy them without physically going through an exchange, go to www.buynow-cryptocurrency. You can simply decide how much cryptocurrency you want to buy, how much dollars you want to spend on it. You'll see what the price is. Enter the address on which you want to send it, your wallet address, or if you're paying somebody, you have to give it to somebody else, their wallet address. Click on purchase, put in your credit card details, and you will have Bitcoin. And this stops you from registering and setting up an exchange. So again, it's www.buynow-cryptocurrency.com. They are part of the Simplex family. They are regulated and monitored, and they are one of the largest in the world. So it makes buying cryptocurrencies with your debit or credit card safe and quick. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you learned a little bit about government regulations. And again, you can go back to investing.com, look under the webinar section, look for pre-recorded, and see all of the different webinars we've done on cryptocurrencies. Have a great weekend now. Talk to you again real soon. Thanks.